Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Reverend Mariam. You can call me Bishop Mariam or just Phoenix from the Awakening of Phoenix, Living with Disability Healing and PhoenixHealingMinistries.org. Today we're going to talk about sins and mistakes. In particular, we're going to dive deep into sins. But I think there's a common misconception in the way that we socially condemn each other of the difference between a sin and a mistake. I think people think there's a fine line, but I think for me the difference is pretty clear. We're going to understand the 7 deadly sins and where the 7 deadly sins, the concept of it, where it came from. And we will also discuss what little sins and big sins are, because some people consider a sin to be a sin, but yet some others consider things like little white lies to be okay. And we all know not to lie. And we all know that murder and taking someone's life is wrong. Cheating on your wife or husband is condemned. But there are other sins that the Bible and many other holy books cover and talk about, and things that we socially live through in life and place upon each other and place upon ourselves that are condemnable, that will literally keep you from the gates of heaven. And then some of them won't. We're going to talk about the difference and what those sins actually are. I'm going to tell you what to do about it if you have committed a sin that is considered to be one of the unforgivable ones. I am teaching you this as an educated, ordained bishop of interfaith. Please feel free to be free and be yourself and understand this as you are. That no matter what sin you have committed, there is still forgiveness. And you still are here, so you still have to live and move on, regardless of the sin that you've committed. You cannot condemn yourself, nor can another man in flesh on this earth do the same to you. So I've included breaks so that we can also go over your notes. You can stretch, but you can also take the time and take a breath and practice a little mindfulness and acknowledge the Most High in your life. And there's a special way that we at the PhoenixHealingMinistries.org do this. And once you learn how to do this, you will love it. So let's get started. So, what is the difference between a sin and a mistake? According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, a sin is an offense against religious or moral law, an action that is left to be reprehensible, deserving censure or condemnation. A mistake, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is a deviation from what is intended. A wrong judgment, action, or statement resulting from faulty reasoning, inadequate knowledge, or inattention, right? Easily being distracted. Basically, a misconception or a misunderstanding. Right? As for one example from the Bible, it talks about and points out frequently a wide range of actions as calling them sins. It encompasses actions of things that we do and a huge amount of attitudes and behaviors that we carry around with us. Now, the concept of the 7 deadly sins, we all know them. Most of us are familiar, no matter what religion, are pride, greed, sloth or laziness, gluttony, wrath or anger, envy, and lust. Now, where did those 7 deadly sins even come from? Because the 7 deadly sins aren't even listed in the Bible. It's not in there. It's just a theological type of framework. It's a framework. It's theology. The Bible doesn't list these at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not in any kind of definite set. The Bible just condemns these behaviors. So, listing the 7 deadly sins and categorizing these behaviors, that didn't happen until the 6th century. And that's in later Christian theology. You know, it came from a certain individual, and it was a pope. Pope Gregory the First. Okay, so the Bible condemns these behaviors, but it's in a different light. They call them in a different list. So that's what we're going to get into. What are these behaviors? What are these actions? What are you doing that is actually a sin? And what is that you're doing that's condemning you or not? So the first one that we're going to talk about is pretty big. And it's one of those that's really belittled. But it's idolatry. You know, idolizing relics or statues or people. That is considered a condemnable sin. Not a mistake, a sin. You know, you like artists. Some people take it a little too far. And liking something, admiring someone, and being inspired can certainly turn into copying, which I believe is a behavior that is not looked upon well. Unless you are copying the Most High, Yeshua. But it also goes further. People might have a statue or a painting of Jesus. There's too many discrepancies on what he actually looked like, blue eyes. Or was it really the description that's in the Bible? Woolly hair, skin like brass. But either way, idolatrizing that image is considered a major sin. Yeah. Number 2, murder. We already mentioned that. Thou shalt not kill. The 10 Commandments, taking a life, ending someone's gift, the gift of life, to be here, is a sin. It is not your place to take what you do not give. That is also blasphemy, because it's God's zone there. You're overstepping your bounds, taking a life. That's sinful. And not to mention the pain and trauma, the hardships that it causes families on both sides. The person whose life was taken and the person who took a life. I mean, they're probably going to either get the death penalty or spend the rest of their life in jail. Everybody loses. It's a sin. Idolatry. Number 3. Oh, no. Adultery. Excuse me. Number 3 is adultery. Cheating. Sleeping with your neighbor's wife. Thou shalt not covet. No cheating. Why would you do that? If you're not happy, leave. And then you go seek out something else, or seek what is wrong with you to begin with as to why you're unhappy all the time. It's something inside of you, not the other person. Maybe it's a little bit of the other person. But you look inward, and living that inward life is so healing, and it prevents things like adultery, right? Be an adult and don't cheat. It's a sin and it should not be belittled. It's another one of those things that I think is very belittled. I think we live in a culture where it's okay to date around, we make it, we culturize it. We make it okay. So you have to be careful of these types of things and not fall for that way of thinking. Number 4. And this is another one that is a big deal. And that's theft. Stealing, period. For whatever reason you give it, theft is theft. It causes too much unseen damage. And while I'm telling you these, it's important to know that there is forgiveness. There is redemption. There is. The murderer and the thief, they both hung on the cross next to Yeshua, next to Jesus. They were forgiven. He gave them forgiveness and gave them a place in God's kingdom in heaven. So we're not to be the ones to condemn anybody for doing it. That's another thing. We'll talk about the separation of church and state in a minute. We're going to go through this list. But there still is forgiveness while I continue. I don't want to continue without saying that. So number 5. We have gone through all of these sins. We've gone through idolatry, murder, adultery, and theft, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So, yeah. Here's a big one. Because we have those little white ones. This little tiny thing. It's to protect, right? Lying. Number 5, lying. Even the smallest ones, we like to define it as white, a little lie, a tall tale. Lying is lying, and it is a sin. Tell the truth. The truth just is. It's not something that you can add or take away from, right? It is the truth, and honey, the truth truly will set you free. So number 6, we're going to keep going here. Okay. But we're going to take a break first before we discuss something very important. And I'm going to give you an opportunity just to stand up and stretch. We're going to take a breath. And we're going to discuss blasphemy. There's a common misconception here. And I think it needs to be cleared up. So let's take that break.
So the premise for taking a break and taking this breath during this break is that I believe, I've seen through ministry that, the fact of the matter is that most people commit sins because they're not putting the Most High first. They're forgetting to acknowledge the Most High in everything that they do. So taking this breath helps you do that. You're going to start by putting your left hand over your stomach, and so that you can feel the up and down movements of your stomach when you take a breath in. Take your right hand and put it over your heart. You feel your heart beating. That's acknowledgement of the Most High. That's the life that He's given you. So don't be dismissive of that. Take a second. Take a moment out of your day. You make time for everything else. Feel that feeling, be in gratitude for that heart, for that life that has been given to you. Another way to feel that life is through the breath. To acknowledge the Most High there, the breath of life. Like you can feel the up and down movements of your stomach as you breathe in, your lungs and your rib cage expanding. As you breathe out, You can hear it escaping your body. During that escape, you literally let go and give it to God. All you have to do is breathe in through your nostrils for 4 counts, hold it for 4 counts, and release for 4 counts. Let's go. When you release, you're going to literally give it to God. Hold on to that feeling for as long as you can. So if you really want to make that feeling stick and stretch that feeling out for as long as you can, then get into that mind-body connection and stretch. The next thing you want to do is drink some water. When you drink the water, feel it going down your throat and splashing into your body. That's another acknowledgement of the Most High, His creation, that mind and body connection. All right, let's get back to it.
Okay. Now we're back. Let me take a drink of water. Number 6, blasphemy. Things like using the Lord's name in vain. We all go around saying, OMG. Oh my gosh. But with the D instead of an SH. We all go around saying that, right? I catch myself doing it. But literally, that's blasphemy. When, we're not really supposed to use the Lord's name in vain. It's simple. It's using the Lord's name in vain, just calling it out. And there's no good reason for it. You're not in commune with Him. It is sacred. It is a sacred space when you are talking with the Most High. And here's the thing. If you're talking with the Most High all day, you're in that sacred space all day. Develop that personal relationship with Him. And when you do that, you have no need to say, oh my gosh, but with a D, right? You have no need to do that. That's how you fix stuff like that. You slowly tell yourself over and over again, oh, that's a sin. I made a mistake and committed a sin. Let me fix that. Father, forgive me for using your name in vain. And then move on. Don't linger on it. Don't focus your energy on that part, okay? Catch it, recognize it, catch it, put it in check, and change it. The 3 C's, we're going with the 3 C's here, okay? Remember that, 3 C's. This is what you're going to do. You're going to, 1, catch it. Right? You're going to put it in check, and then you're going to change it. You're going to change your thought. You're going to change your energy. You're going to change your action, your behavior, your attitude. So you have to know how to catch what you're doing. So you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be quiet in order to pay attention to what you're doing, right? There is forgiveness. Just say, Lord, forgive me for saying your name in vain, and then move on. Number 7, it kind of goes with it. If you're a prideful type of person, it's going to be difficult for you to do that. Yeah, number 7 is pride. We walk around with a great deal of pride. It's a sin. And it's actually considered the root of many sins. And not to be confused with the root of all evil, money, But pride involves placing one's own desires and opinions not just above others, but above Most High's, above God's. Right? It's wrong. It's a sin with undertones of blasphemy, right? Pride. Right? We can do without a little bit of pride. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of pride, like the type of pride that you put into your work. We're lacking on that one. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the other pride, the pride that makes you place your own desires and opinions above the Most High. And sometimes above others, right? those who are above an authority figure, someone who has more experience than you. Put your pride aside. Never stop learning. If you're not coachable, if you're not teachable, how will you expect someone to help you when you need it? You're going to have this air about you of pridefulness. It's going to be hard to get through that thick wall. So break it down and consider using pride in your work, in the things that you're about, instead of pride with your opinions and blasphemous ways and putting your desires and opinions above the Most High. Number 8, greed. Oh boy, my goodness, greed. Right? With greed, there is an excessive desire for material possessions, wealth, money. That's considered, the old 70s, 60s, 70s songs, for the love of money, people will steal for that money. People don't let money change you. Almighty God. It will, especially if you have greed for it. Because greed will make you steal. It'll make you kill for your own brother. It'll make you lie. It'll make you exasperate, and exaggerate pride. It gives you envy. It gives you anger, right? It'll cause you to backstab your own sister, your own brother. Greed. It's a sin. It's a sin to have excessiveness. Yeah. Number 9. This is a big one. Number 9 is pretty big. Wrath. Oh boy. Wrath. A lot of people don't understand wrath. It's one of those King James words, King James version of the Bible, but it's another word for anger. Okay. Using control. And right here, you need to check out this video right here. Energies, frequencies, and vibrations. Understanding emotions. A lot of people don't know what an emotion is. And I'm not talking about some textbook drill. And in the Bible says, be slow to anger. But I would like to remind people that being slow to anger doesn't exempt you. We all get angry. We all experience it, right? And so is it really control? Well, it depends on what you think an emotion is. But in this video, I go into what that is. And I think there's this huge misconception. And I think if people understood what emotions really are, they'll be able to control their spirit. But they can direct their emotions. So if you try to control something like anger, it will actually wind up controlling you. You get this buildup of this heat, this sum in your chest. And it heats up and it builds up. And there's nothing you can do to it with it. Once it gets to a certain point, you lose your control to direct, that ability to direct that anger. And anger has the ability to stretch out very far, like an oar almost. Not only does it stretch out very far, it's semi-permeable. So it can seep into others around you. So you have to be very careful with that energy. So I'm going to make a video about that because I want to get into that because I want people to understand what anger really is. And that emotion has a specific tone and a specific vibration so that I'm going to get into that so people can have help when it comes to anger. But we're going to go ahead because I want you to understand just a little bit further into wrath. It's misdirected energy. It's built up. You lose control of yourself in rage. The direction of that's a sin. It's important to know this. Very important. it's considered, if it's considered anger towards another from someone's actions, something that, an action that you didn't receive that you thought you should have, that's wrath, that's anger. But then if it's considered righteous anger to uphold God's glory, then the Bible talks about this as not being a sin. So that's very important to know. Pay attention to that, right? So we're going to keep going with number 10. Envy, restfulness. Okay. I mean, restlessness. Envy carries an energy of restlessness of the spirit. And then when you allow that type of restlessness in your spirit to seep in, it's sinful because of what it makes you do. Envy, you're desiring, you're wanting something that other people have. It's a destructive type of energy, a rebelliousness against God's will, the flow of the universe, a disregard for the balance. That is considered sinful, my friends. Well, we have gone through 10 of these sins that most people don't think of besides those 7 deadly ones, right? So what do we have so far? Idolatry, murder, adultery, theft, lying, blasphemy, pride, greed, wrath, and envy. All right. So we're going to keep going. There's 13. So we're almost done. But we're going to take another break. Go use the bathroom, stretch, take a breath if you need to. Forgive yourself. Take this moment to forgive yourself. All right? We shall return. Now, just as a reminder, if you took a break, I don't know if you did not, but if you took a break, envy was the last one, number 10, envy. And I just wanted to say this, that envy doesn't build, it tears apart. All of these sins don't build, they tear apart. They're destructive energies. But we're going to move forward on to number 11. And that, my friends, is lust. Lust is desire. And these desires are totally inappropriate. Okay? Not appropriate at all. The ones that are, when people think of lust, I think their biggest thought, most popular thought is sexual desires. Now, I say that because you can have lust and it not be sexual. And it's important for us to understand that, lust, my goodness, how many people lust for chocolate? Okay, it's not just a craving. You are lusting for it. You go through all the motions of moaning and groaning and thinking about it and how physically it is gratifying. You desire that gratification so intensely that you have to have that chocolate. There is no saying no. And if you say no, you're going to find yourself a couple of days, maybe a week later, eating that chocolate. And when you eat it, your desire is fulfilled, knowing that you're going to have that desire again. That is lust. People might lust for certain materials on their skin. If you have a lot of money, and maybe you are a materialistic type of person, and devil and greed as well as your sin, as your vice of sin, then lust is probably big up there for you too. I mean, Certain materials on the skin create that mindset of lust. Certain foods, alcohol, cigarettes. And we live in a world where people have such horrible relationship with food. It's either starving or you are lusting or greed. You are desiring something so bad that is puts you on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's almost as if, the bad side is facing the good side. There's a standoff, and the line is so thin. You've crossed it and didn't even realize it. That's lust. And some food can do that to you too. So food is not just a greed or gluttony, which actually it's going to bring me to number 12. But yes, lust is a desire, and these desires are inappropriate. Okay, so number 12, right? We just mentioned it. Gluttony. We are gluttons. Oh my goodness. We have come up into a culture that we just indulge in every single solitary thing. There is no balance, no stop button, especially with food and drink and, unmarital sex. It's important to know, that gluttony doesn't begin and end with just food and drink. You can be a glutton with sex. Gluttony doesn't just mean a little, just food and drinks. But I think we all understand gluttony. It's excessive indulging in every single solitary thing. And as far as, I'm just using that as an example, celibacy, if you have a trouble with gluttony, because I have a big concern with that, much like lust and everything, because there's health risks here. Greed, gluttony, lust. The gluttony, if you eat and eat and eat, you can get heart disease, diabetes. There's so many things that you take on. There was a time when people thought that illness were demons, bacterias, and, those are bad spirits. Alcohol is called spirits. You're putting something in you and it's taking over, like parasitic spirit, a possession of some kind. Of course they, might have thought something like that. But, we don't consider our sins this way. They are like demons. If you've seen the movie The Exorcist, her body was so cakey looking, her face, it was just falling apart and melting. And she looked like she was just death. But that's what it does. It deteriorates you. It breaks you down. And if you don't confess them, if you don't get them out, if you don't let them go, they will attach onto you. It will attach to you. And it will drain you of your energy. It will continue to do so. And sometimes throughout people's entire lifetime. I've seen people on their deathbed, to be able to lift that weight off was a tremendous relief for them. On their deathbed. Ooh, you don't want to wait till then, because it was also a very sad thing to see the hurt and pain in their eyes that they didn't do it sooner. And some people actually would say it to me. I worked in hospice. I'm a retired nurse, not just a minister. So those type of things are very concerning to me. I don't want to belittle these or make them too light. I want you to understand that these are serious before we move on. Okay. So with gluttony, it brings me to number 13. But when you sit there with something like gluttony with food and drinks, you start to get low energy and a little lazy, right? That food is weighing down and your heart is having to work harder, so you're just going to slow down a little bit, right? Of course, if you are a glutton with food, it might make you the 13th sin. Being lazy, laziness or sloth. The 13th sin is the sloth, the lack of a desire to work. No desire to thrive and live and do for yourself is a sin. Now, I'm not talking about some chemical depression. Let's clear that up. Laziness and sloth are not mental illness. Okay? And then now, do not put those two together. Do not belong. Laziness or sloth. I know a lot of people are laziness and sloth. They would like, misery loves company. They would like to try to add on to that list so they don't look as bad. But I'm telling you now that depression, any type of mental illness or another physical illness that drains you of energy or doesn't allow someone to have enough energy, that most of the normal population has today, that's not laziness. That's illness, okay? It's not sloth. It's illness. But laziness and sloth is a sin. To not want to do for yourself. You've been given this life. It's like spitting on it. It's like saying, I don't care. I don't care about this gift. The gift of life. I don't care. The gift of life that the Most High is giving you. You are being blasphemous of the Most High here. Get up, move around, no idle hands. Change your thoughts. Remember the 3 C's from earlier? Catch it, check it, and change it. And you have to be willing and desiring to work on it and do better for yourself. It feels good when you do, right? It doesn't feel so good when you don't. Change the energy flow. All right, let's move on. Now, as we continue, I'm going to say this one thing. The Bible addresses other sins, not just the Bible, but other holy books. Now, I keep referring to the Bible, and I want you to understand I am a bishop of interfaith. But the reason why I keep doing that is because I think, as in general, other religions understand the Bible as well as their own book that they follow the way they walk in life. Maybe not to the same degree, but they have a general understanding, and they understand the different sects of Christianity and the way that the Bible is read and the stories that are in the Bible. They're familiar with Yeshua and Jesus. But is within the different religions and school of thoughts that follow the Bible, that within the Christian faith that don't typically know other religions or school of thoughts or ways of life. But to make this universal and so that everybody can feel comfortable and learn so that we can raise to a higher degree, the Bible addresses other sins that people don't talk about. And these sins are equally as important as the other ones that I mentioned. And I think if we address these head on more and not kind of sweep them under the rug or belittle them, we'll be able to raise to a higher degree of existence as a whole. So the first one I'm going to talk about is pretty across the board. Doesn't matter which country or culture, ethnicity, financial background, or life that you live. Dishonoring your parents is frowned upon, and it is a sin. You don't consider it, but like I said, behaviors, attitudes, and actions or what's condemned here in the Bible, right? So dishonoring your parents, being disrespectful to your parents and dishonoring them, the path they took for you to walk down. Don't dishonor or disrespect that, no matter how much you might disagree. You don't know the path. Do not, because you're coming off of that. That's where your start comes from, like it or not. You're in a bloodline. You're part of a line. Don't disrespect that. It's a sin. It's not your place to say how they are supposed to be condemned. Maybe you need distance, but not giving them condemnation. It's not your place to say how anybody is supposed to be condemned at that matter. Leave it to the Most High. It seems hard to do, and it's hard to do for the parents as well. It's vice versa, right? It is a sin. It is a sin to dishonor your parents. Which brings me to the second one. This is huge and requires a whole nother video, but I'm just going to touch on it just a little bit here. Okay. Just to introduce you to a more broader perspective than what you're used to hearing about unforgiveness or forgiveness. We're talking about the sin part, which is the unforgiving, holding on, being bitter and holding on to that bitterness and refusing to forgive other people's sins and mistakes. And that's a sin. Not just something that's, this is not just something that's just hard to do or makes for a great sermon or motivational speech. Unforgiveness is sinful. It's not something that we're supposed to be thriving to do, holding on. It's the wanting, the choice to unforgive or be undecided and not let go of bitterness. You're not supposed to want to hold on to that. That's a sin. Not giving it to God is a sin. Unforgiveness is a sin. Which brings me to hatred. Right? Number 3. Like I just said, I'm just going to touch on unforgiveness just a little bit. Allow your mind to start asking questions and to wait for the answer from the Most High. Know how to hear from Him. Let's get you started there. Number 3, we have hatred. Woo! My goodness, right? Falls in line with unforgiveness, right? Hatred and malice towards other people. It goes with unforgiveness, right? Condemning them. Passing judgment on them. It's a sin, my friends. It's a sin. This is real life. We now know how emotions and trauma carry in our blood. It even affects our organs as well as our DNA, right? The sins of the fathers. This is a real life thing. It's actually damaging to be in a certain existence in your next life. It's damaging to your whole reputation, your whole soul's existence, not just your time spent in this body. It's going to be put under the ground 6 feet under or cremated, Next, not just your existence, though, and your flesh and the body you inhabit now, So hatred Hatred carries with you. And it's sinful. Just like I said, it attaches to you. These sins attach to you and they carry forth with you. This is so important. So we're going to move on. We're just going to kind of come out of that a little bit. And move on with a different tone here. Sexual immortality. We'll make number 4 sexual immortality. Of the sins that we don't necessarily talk about, we don't consider to really be sins. But like I said, actions, behaviors, attitudes. Sexual immortality. And a lot of people don't understand what that is, sexual immortality. Any sexual activity outside of marriage. Okay, that's a sign. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. These need no explanation. You're not married. You have any kind of intercourse. It's a sin. Having children out of wedlock, extramarital affairs with somebody's wife while you're single, that's a sin. It's a sin to give it up, right? And you're not married. Ooh, Lord, especially when we're young, right? We have so many reasons that's why it's okay. It's horrible to get with someone and then marry them only to find out they don't know what they're doing in bed. What a horrible, life for the rest of your life to not be satisfied sexually. Have fun with it. It's actually now legal. You're married. You can actually get away with it in the courts and God's law. You finally can have it, but you can't get it the way that you need or desire. Or they are inadequate. They can't do anything. Right? This happens. You say, I'd rather know beforehand. They might have deficiencies in their body. You're going to be with this person for the rest of your life. They've got corns. It's only fair. I want to know beforehand, right? No. That's still a sin. And that's not okay. And so many others, right? Hypocrisy, which actually brings us to hypocrisy. Number 5, but we're going to take a small break first. Take a breath, stretch, drink some water, take this moment, breathe, and forgive yourself, all right? Okay, see you in a minute. Hello, everyone. I know I said we're going to take like a breather or some time to, take a breath and acknowledge the Most High, ask for forgiveness. Well, I am living with disability. This is real. This is a real conversation. This is really me talking to you about sins and mistakes, what I've learned through my education in life. It's so simple, but I just ran out of energy. But I'm back and it is the next day. That's why my hair looks different and what I'm wearing is different. So I'll try to keep the same clothes or something like that. I don't know. The next day, I'm living with disability, dysautonomia, and many mental illnesses, a conglomerate of mental illness, agoraphobia, PTSD, generalized anxiety, depression. We all have gone through something in life. It's not just a platform. This is really me sharing my experience, not just my story, because everybody has a story to share. If you are interested, please check us out on Facebook, Healing 101 Help with Life. And you can flip it around. Help with Life Healing 101. But if you hear any sounds in the background, I've got construction going on outside and the lawn people are outside. I live in a complex, so I don't live in a house. I can't afford that right now. So I live in an apartment complex, so there's going to be maybe some noise today. But we're going to continue. And so, yes, glad to see you come back. And just remember, this video is going to be here. Subscribe to the channel, phoenixhealingministries.org, Help with Life, Healing 101. Be blessed with a broader perspective of life. And from someone who's actually walked it, not just someone who's educated and ordained, okay? I don't just have a background in ministry. I have a background as a registered nurse. I worked as a registered nurse from 1994 to 2013, excuse me. I climbed the ladder for quite some time. Pretty close to 25, 30 years. Before the nursing, I had a background in criminal law. So all cultivating into this calling, I was being prepped. So these are just, as an interfaith perspective, because I believe that we all live on this earth together, and no matter what religion or school of thought you are in, no matter what religion, ethnicity, financial background, we are all living on this earth together. We all have had trauma. We have all been through something. We all have something to bring to the table. We can all heal together. So check out my Facebook group. It is totally private. Also, I have a page, Help with Life Healing 101. Healing 101, Help with Life. Like I said, you can interchange the direction of the sayings and you'll find them there. And I'm also on Instagram, Help with Life Healing 101. On the web, phoenixhealingministries.org as Help with Life. Check out our blog. And we also have a dinner time to heal. If you're living with disability, the food is a big deal. It is like medicine. They don't call it the Food and Drug Administration for nothing. So don't forget to subscribe and let us move on with number 5, my friends. Hypocrisy. Ooh. My goodness. We all know what it is. And not practicing what one preaches is a sin. Practice what you preach is not one of the easiest of things. In fact, most ministers, people with those titles, bishops, pastors, reverends, preachers, it doesn't matter which title you give it. It is very discreet and hidden and belittled and acted as if they are perfect, and they are not. There is a lot of children being touched inappropriately in the church. That is the best example that I have right now for you, to let you see what I mean by everyone falls for hypocrisy and falls short, has fallen in it, okay? Not practicing what one preaches is a sin. But this is important. This is the most important. And not a tool. This is the most important after understanding everybody does this. Hypocrisy is not a tool for the sycophant. Okay? If you are unfamiliar. It's not a tool for haters or gossipers. It's not a tool for you to do that. It's not just a sin. It's not just something that something's doing, somebody else is doing wrong. People use that to do the other sins that we talked about, like hate, unforgiveness, bitterness, holding on, hypocrisy. You have to ask for forgiveness for that. You have to work on living up to what you believe is right. You don't teach what you don't believe, right? But most important thing to know about hypocrisy is that sometimes we fall short. Romans 3:23. And we all fall short. We all come short. We all sin and make mistakes. This is not just because you failed to it, right? Hypocrisy is not just failing to it. It's being a hypocrite because you're not reaching towards it. Practicing. I'm talking just actually like something that you're not and then not reaching towards it. I'm not talking about, to be clear, the people that are trying to, I don't want anyone to be upset. I don't want anyone to take it the wrong way. So I'm saying some people, but if you're not practicing what you preach, everyone falls short, okay? But when you don't practice it, that's a sin. You understand? If somebody says not to do this, but then all the people that heard them say not to do it, but then they're seen doing it, that's not the definition of a hypocrite. That's the definition of a human. A hypocrite is somebody that's not going to say, oops, I know we're supposed to do it like this. Everybody forgive me, Lord forgive me. And then showing and doing things to correct it, practicing it, trying to practice it differently. That's not a hypocrite. That's a human. I'm talking about not practicing what you preach. Failing to do it and not practicing are two different things. You can practice and still fail and come short. Okay? So don't be a hypocrite. Let us move on to number 6. Because hypocrisy can bring about the sycophants of hypocrisy can bring about number 6, and that is gossip and bad talking others, right? It's a sin in the Bible. It's condemned. Backbiting or slander. Taking an event and then turning it into something that it is not. And then watching it grow. Watching people grow it more. That's a sin. Ugh, my goodness. That's a sin. Gossiping is a very destructive energy. But it is an energy that one is willing and truly pushes it out with intent, okay? They know what they're doing. They're purposely creating chaos and havoc. So that's gossiping, and it is a huge sin because of the chaos that it causes. Is an action, and it is a behavior that stems from attitude. All right, number 7. This kind of goes with gossip because people use it to reel people in with it. And that's a rebellious type of way because it's a rebellious type of language that gossip often uses. Inappropriate language. Ooh, number 7 is cursing. Cursing is a sin. Guilty. Guilty as charged. I'm not proud of it, but I'm guilty. We all have all kinds of reasons to make this one okay, right? What? Those people in the Bible, they had to curse. Well, of course they did. But does it make it okay? Like, hello, whoosh, with the fiery finger, or parted the Red Sea. You mean to tell me those people didn't look at that and be like, what the? They said it, they did. And you're probably looking at me like, the people in the Bible, that's blasphemy. That's not blasphemy. That's telling the truth. But just because they did it, just because everybody else doesn't mean that we should do it. We slip because it's available to us. We see it as such. We read it. We've heard it. We've said it. We snuck around when we were children to say it. Ooh, I'm going to tell mommy. In childhood, that's where the program begins, right? So it's embedded in us. Our ancestors did it. So it's inside the blood. You have to practice on not doing it. I have to correct myself. And when I do, oh, excuse me. Woo, I shouldn't have said that. Bring yourself back. Ethics 101. Be your own moral compass. You're going to watch me doing this. Okay, yeah. Like I said, and at the end of every video is my mission vision statement. I am going to be showing different ways to get through the day while living with the effects, living with disability, healing from trauma. Cursing is no disability. All right, but still, learning to stop is healing. How? Showing you how, not just telling you. I don't want anyone to feel or just see. I'm a bishop. I have this title, educated and ordained philosophy, theology, clinical pastoral psychology, nursing, criminal law, background, all of my stage experience. That's just my journey. So, doing what I'm doing right now. That led me to right now. But I still have things that I need to work on. I'm saying, don't let anyone's title allowing you into making them superior or you inferior. Yeah. Anything is inferior to you. We're all God's children. Worth it, worthy, and enough. So yeah, filthy language, It doesn't matter what religion you are. I think we all can agree it has its moments. It looks and sounds pretty bad. So let's clean it up, Say hi.
Hi.
So our robes are going to be made dirty and made clean. And the book of Matthew, it says, we have to die daily. So you actually have to be working on it, practicing it. The thing is that you have to practice on not doing it and correcting yourself when you do, Oh, excuse me, I shouldn't have said that. I apologize for my language or behavior, That's out of my character. I'm working on it. Bring yourself back. Don't you have a bigger vocabulary? You all will be watching me do this. Next up, coveting. Ooh boy. Coveting, which falls in line with adultery and sexual immorality. It might even bring up some energies of envy and jealousy. Coveting, desiring what belongs to others, is a sin. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Get my mouth up. That's a sin, right? But see, it's not just sex. Everybody puts it in the context of sex, coveting. The 10 Commandments has really brought about the understanding of sexuality of coveting. But coveting, as an example, you see someone having really long hair, right? Envy and jealousy, they come. But covet it, the desire for what belongs to someone else. So yeah, they have this car, right? They have this house with this woman. She had a big juicy butt and a nice rack. How did they land that? or my girlfriend, my best friend now, she's got this guy and he's got buco bucks and spoils her out the wazoo. Either I'll plot to take it or expect it from my man. Oh, she's got it. How come you can't do it? That's coveting. Desiring what belongs to others is a sin. Figure out, recognize what belongs to you. Celebrate that. Respect the journey from which you came. Love on where you are now. Not where you want to go, not where you've been. You're not there. You're not in the past or the future. You're here now. Appreciate where it is going to take you. Don't try to manipulate the universal laws to get what you want. It belongs to you. If it belongs to you, it's coming. If it's meant for you, it will happen. Which brings me to the last. Okay. Ooh, sorcery and witchcraft. Trying to manipulate the universal laws. Trying to manipulate energy. I'm not talking about directing energy. That's something completely different. Manipulating it, and not trusting the Most High, taking it into your own hands, is witchcraft and sorcery. I want people to understand that if you can see things, stop giving all the credit to the devil. Oh my goodness, the Most High bestows these gifts as well. Don't be so quick to call it witchcraft or sorcery. Let me tell you, everybody prays. That it has a spirituality about the more religious way. Prayer is big. Prayer and meditation, right? Across the board. Prayer and casting spells. Some might think of them as the same thing. You can pray and be like, oh, Lord, Father God, show them their way. Because, you're not asking the Most High to show them their way so they could be okay. You don't have any forgiveness for anything that they've done. You want the Most High to hurt them. You want them to feel hurt like you do. You think they deserve that. Karma. Karma's a kind of a prayer, right? I hear people all the time, oh, I don't wait for karma. or yeah, karma will get them. Like, what? If that was like a cause and effect thing, like karma, but not to everybody. Some people use that statement and pray. You pray a prayer is energy you're pushing out. What thoughts are you using? What energy are you pushing out? What's in your heart when you're praying? That's casting a spell. You don't have to use elements. What are you doing? Are you breathing while you're praying? You've got an element right there. What are you doing? Are you inside of a room with the light on? Breathing. What are you doing? That's light. That's another element. You got air. You got light. Or have you started sweating, the spit coming out your mouth? Do you have a plethora of saliva when you're praying? That could be thought of as ethereal. But that saliva, that liquid, that body fluid, that's another element. And that's another sign of what type of energy you're praying. When you cast a spell, some of you guys are praying, but it's casting spells. Witchcraft and sorcery. It extends. You don't have to be, praying to another god. You don't have to be praying to some demon or using any of the elements or over fire, You don't have to be making a spell, a poem of such, a song of such, for it to be a spell and not a prayer. You could be praying, but actually casting. What energy are you using? So don't mistaken it. Don't think that you're not committing it just because you don't have a black pointy hat or riding a broom around and getting stuck in trees. So yeah, sorcery and witchcraft and any practicing associated with the occult is condemned in the Bible, okay? It's condemned. It's a sin. Because we all need to understand, take a full view, a more broader perspective as you walk down that narrow path, right? We all need to understand what is considered sinful in Christianity are not considered sinful to other religions and may not be in every sect of Christianity either, right? Spiritualities, doctrines, and ways of life. As an example, the Celtic practices predates Christianity by some odd 1100, 1200 years. Before Constantine and the Romans and that bloody path of destruction. So yeah, people still practice outside of these that are thought to be sins. And goodness, we're all living in this world together. So to understand that we have the concept of mistakes and sins, we also have the concept of government, which is commit a crime or a felony, right? Those are considered mistakes and sins as well. Sometimes the crime or the felony is murder of the first degree and manslaughter, right? Taking a life is a sin, but it's also a crime. It's government. Thou shalt not kill. The 10 Commandments. So it goes across the board with these sins that I'm teaching you. And it's not just biblical. This is just, this is just something that most people are familiar with. The Bible uses sin and other concepts, making mistakes. I use words, not me. Well, me, like we all do. But the Bible uses words like, sin comes in many contexts, like mistakes, right? That's one. Missing the mark. Ungodliness, transgressions, rebellions, iniquities, right? Treachery, right? All of these are there and described as sinful, going against God. Anything that goes against God's will and His law is condemned and thought of as sin. And to commit one, we all do. But to commit one without resolve, right? To commit one is a grave mistake, right? Now listen. According to various religions, like I said, I'm an interfaith bishop. Different ones with philosophy and philosophical perspectives and theologies. Sins that prevent one from entering heaven from different religions and perspectives, philosophies. Sins that prevent entering one's from heaven includes actions that are considered to be against God's will or His moral principles. And these can range from murder, adultery, idolization, idolatry. And things that are more like general failings, like hatred, dishonesty, or contempt, or a lack of faith. The most unforgiving, the most unforgivable sin being blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, which is seen as a rejection of God's grace, of God's forgiveness. You guys know what I'm talking about, the blasphemy, going against God. The best example I can give is a movie. You guys know The Conjuring. The Conjuring, for example. Oh, The Exorcist, like from the 70s. You get the demonic 3 knocks going against the Trinity. That's blasphemy. And that is one of those unforgivable sins. But like I was saying, there's more to it. There's more to sins than those 7 deadly sins that everybody knows. Yeah, it gets much deeper. If you think it's gonna get heavy, but the general failings are so light, we look past them. We belittle them, but it causes just as much chaos inwardly and outwardly, right? Through the bloodline, its treachery keeps repeating itself. So let's talk about more of these general failings just real quick. Like, for instance, just real quick. The hardening of one's heart, having a hard heart, having a lack of compassion and empathy and willingness to forgive others, along with pride and self-righteousness. An inflated sense of self-importance. The world is being taken over by the narcissist. It's a sin. And the belief that one is better than anyone else. That grandiose sense of self. Those are called general failings of sin. It's a sin, guys. It's a sin to think of oneself as superior over one other. It's important. It's important to acknowledge that we all live in this world together. It's important to acknowledge that. And we need to know that some believe that certain actions are inherently sinful and lead you to an eternal damnation, while others emphasize the importance of repentance and forgiveness, letting go and moving on. There are ones that are okay with revenge and taking it into one's own hands because you have will. God gave you will and gave you a choice to do it. So as long as it's within justice, right? And again, we have the law, separation of church and state, government. So let's understand that a great respect for one another is needed here when it comes to sins and mistakes, right? Forgive each other. Work on not repeating offenses, debts, and trespasses, right? Loving ourselves enough to love others as our sisters and brothers. We are sharing this earth, breathing this air together. We're sharing this space, destroying it and building it up all together. We are on this earth together. Let's heal together, right? Let's raise to a higher degree. Help yourself so that you can be able to help someone else, right? It keeps going. You help yourself, right? You're able to help somebody else. They help themselves. They can help somebody else. And it just keeps going and going and going until we all raise to a higher degree of existence. Take that journey inward so it can reflect outside for the whole of us. Not for sight for everybody to see, but for the whole. And as I mention all the time, the Awakening of Phoenix, Living with Disability Healing, and Phoenix Healing Ministries.org has a international registered trademark. It is not just your spirituality that can define your journey. It is your journey that can define your spirituality. If you want to take confession, you want to try it the interfaith way, which is a lot different than the kind of confession you're used to. Look, I am in the flesh like you. You are not asking me for forgiveness here. What I'm doing is being that person that you can come to with the Most High, that will help you get it out and help you let it go. Because, listen, sins and mistakes, they tend to attach themselves to us like sins, like little demons, like little parasites to our bodies. And when I say bodies, I'm talking about your flesh, your spirit, and your soul. It can attach itself to your line, your bloodline, sins of the fathers, sins of the mothers. That's a real thing. It holds on to your energy. You have to let it go. You have to dispel it. I can't tell you how many people that I have served and visited while they're on their deathbed as a minister and a hospice nurse. These sins, they want to get rid of them before they move on. It's a longing. It's a heavy need to let go now so that you can move on without that weight. But, the living I'm talking about now. Don't feel bad because you have a lot of it. And what happens if somebody walks around carrying all that weight? They're training for something. It drains you. But what happens when you put that weight? You put that weight down. You're not weaker. You're stronger. Don't feel bad, okay? Forgive yourself. Let me do my job and help you with the next steps so that you can have success. Maybe you didn't start off with the Most High. Maybe you didn't have a good start. Maybe you had some really bad stuff happen. It made you make bad decisions and choices. You can have a stronger finish. You can finish with the Most High. And that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to judge you for what you've done. Okay? I'm not here for that. I'm here to help you realize your potential. I'm here to help you lift yourself up to a higher degree of existence. God bless you all. Remember, forgiveness is the key.
You're God's child. Thank you for watching. If you've been blessed by this content, help the phoenixhealingministries.org grow and subscribe to our channel. Give us a thumbs up and share our content. You're worth it. You're worthy. You're enough. You're God's child. And as always, it is not just your spirituality that can define your journey. It's your journey that can define your spirituality.